It is my pleasure to welcome everyone to First Parish. If you are new to First Parish, please feel free to reach out to our greeters with any questions and join us for coffee after the service, which is located in the room across from the offices down the hall. The first half of our service is recorded and will be posted on our Facebook page and on YouTube. The candles section with our personal sharing is not. Today's service is called Tribalism, Inclusion, Beloved Community, and Hypocrisy, and will be led by our guest minister, Judy Campbell. Our musical director is Sandi, Hammond, and our technical director today is Linda Harding. In our efforts to keep everyone safe and healthy, we welcome you to join us in singing our hymns, but we ask you to wear a mask while doing so. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever you believe, wherever you are on your journey, come walk with us this hour. Let us walk together this hour. Our call to worship today comes from Kathleen McTee. We come together this morning to remind one another to rest for a moment on the forming edge of our lives, to resist the headlong tumble into the next moment, until we claim for ourselves awareness and gratitude. Take the time to look into one another's faces and to see a communion, the reflection of our own eyes. This house of laughter and silence, memory and hope is hallowed by our presence together. Please rise in body or spirit for hymn number 323, Break Not the Circle. We will be singing the first two verses.
So, when I was looking at Judy's title for today's service, and I was thinking about those words, and tribalism and people in groups, I was trying to find a story that really connected to that. And I struggled with that. And so I decided that I was going to find a story that has always been in my heart about groups and individuals. And it's from a book called A Lamp in Every Corner, which is a UU book. And it's titled A Lamp in Every Corner. Many years ago, in the land of Transylvania, in a mountain valley watered by quick rushing streams and shadowed by great forests of beech trees, there was a village of small wooden houses and dark shingled roofs. The people in the village were of the Unitarian religion, and they wanted a church of their own. A church that was set on a hillside, they decided, looking down upon the village as a mother looks down upon her sleeping child. So all the people of the village labored long and hard to build themselves a church. The stonemasons hammered sharp chisels to cut great blocks of gray stone, then set the stone into stout and sturdy walks. The glazers made tiny glass panes and fitted them neatly into the windows with the leaded lines. The foresters saw tall beech trees into enormous beams and laid the trusses for the ceilings. Then they covered the roof with close-fitted wooden shingles that wouldn't let a drop of rain in. The carpenters carved wood for a pair of wide opening doors, setting them on strong pegs so that the doors hung straight and square. A bell was brought from a faraway city that was hoisted by ropes with a heave and a hoe to the top of the tower. The weavers wove fine cloths for the altar table, cloths embroidered with flowers and edged in lace. The smiths hammered black iron into tall lampstands and hammered thin bronze into shining oil lamps. Finally, when the building of the church was done, the painting of the church could begin. The painters mixed bright colors, royal red, shimmering gold, and brilliant blues, and everyone in the village helped. Everyone came to decorate. They painted flowers and trees, they painted designs, and in the windows, they painted special messages. And at the end of the day, when it was finished, when their church was finally done, all the people of the village stood back to admire it, and then to sing a song of happiness and praise. Their village had a church now, a church set on the hillside looking down onto the village as a mother looks down on her sleeping child. We will eat now, they said, because we always eat when we celebrate. So they had a feast. And after they had eaten, they went back inside the church and they opened those carved wooden windows to look in and have fresh air. Oh, look, Father Zora cried, running from picture to picture with her footsteps echoing on the stone. See how pretty this church is? She stopped in the center of the church and swirled around slowly, just to take it in. How grand, she said. Yes, it is, said her father, looking around and nodding with pride. Yes, it is. But Father, she said, we haven't finished. What do you mean? There are tall iron lampstands all along the walls, but there are no lamps. The church will be dark and the people will not come back. Ah, no, little one, she said, her father said. The light of the church comes from its people. You shall see. He rang the bell to call the people to worship. Then he took his daughter by the hand and led her back outside. They waited on the grassy hillside next to their beautiful church. The sun had been setting behind the mountains, and night was coming soon. Yet, in the glowing darkness, tiny points of light came from many directions and moved steadily up the hill. Each family created this church. Each family is entrusted with a lamp, her father explained. Each family lights its own way, and we all come together. And now we're going to take the children on a journey of learning and discovery.
This little light of mine,
reading is from The Atlantic, written by Dominic Packer and J. Von Babel. The myth of tribalism. Beware of the false notion that group solidarity leads to inevitable conflict. When people use the term tribalism, they are usually aiming to capture a toxic dynamic in collective life, such as the one that characterizes much of contemporary American politics. The power of group norms has long been recognized in other domains. For example, young people's drug and alcohol use or risky sexual behavior is heavily influenced by what they believe their peers do. Following the invasion and then defeat of ISIS in northern Iraq, the Christian and Muslim communities living there were deeply divided. But they had something in common: a passion for soccer. In an extraordinarily recent experiment, a political scientist, Selma Rusa, recruited amateur Christian soccer teams to join a new league. She arranged for half of the teams to remain all Christian, while the other half were joined by Muslim players. Playing together for a season with Muslim teammates made the Christian players express more inclusive attitudes compared to those of the homogeneous teams. The Christians on religiously mixed teams were more prepared to train with Muslims in the future, vote for Muslim players to win a prize, and sign up for similar cross-religion experiences in the next season. The benefits appeared to be particularly pronounced for players on winning teams. All of this contradicts commonly held notions that about tribal nature of group psychology. What many people call tribalism is tragically prevalent. It is not inevitable. It's a function of group norms. But the constant invocation of tribalism may create a self-fulfilling prophecy. People come to distrust other groups and falsely believe that they need to discriminate against outsiders or suppress dissenters to maintain their status within their own group. Understanding how group identities combine with norms to help shape behavior also empowers people, especially leaders, to focus more on cultivating healthy norms within their group, rather than assuming that a group will slide into hostility or insularity. We humans can and should hold ourselves to a higher standard. It is not in our order of service, but our musical reflection is Philip Glass's Mad Rush.
just love that one. Before I start, I have to say that I had no idea what Keller was going to do today, but I have been to that or a very similar village in Transylvania. I have preached in that stone-cold church that is not heated in the wintertime, where on all of the benches there are knitted afghans, so your doesn't hit the cold, ice-cold wood. And the services are 2 or 3 hours long. And the minister not only preaches, but he plays the organ. Until recently it was a he, now it's both. Plays the organ. And it's usually an old pump organ that somebody is either pumping or working a bellow behind the scenes. And there's usually a separate door for men and for women. And the women sit on one side and the men sit on another side. And I've been there 3 times. And each one was a wonder. When I first went there, it was almost a third world country, where a few houses had electricity. There was 1 or 2 cars in the entire village. The roads were not paved. Everybody, they had plenty of food because they grew it all. As a vegetarian, I got the 1 egg in the village and got dirty looks from everybody in my party because I had an egg. And we were in one of the 3 houses with an indoor toilet that you flushed with a bucket. And a shower, a hot shower, was a wood-fired water heater, and you stood in a pan, they had bathtubs, in a pan or bathtub, and then you recycled the water because it was warm. And so when I hear someone wailing and carrying on because, oh, the supermarket shelves are half empty. Oh my goodness, gas prices are so high. I'm not being very nice right now, but I'm going to talk a lot about walking in another person's moccasins. Walking in another person's moccasins. So, and this is not a coldest allergist, I apologize. Tribalism, inclusion, beloved community, and hypocrisy. When did the word tribalism become so prevalent? When does beloved community circle the wagon and become the tribe? And where is the tipping point when our core values become so aligned with the values of the espoused by the tribe that we cease thinking for ourselves? Quoting the words that Jenn read earlier, understanding how group identities combine with norms to shape human behavior also empowers people, and especially leaders. It stands to reason to focus more on cultivating healthy norms within their group. In other words, the development of a strong group and group identity can be a positive and powerful force. Unitarian Universalism, for example, and its 7 principles of right relationship with the earth and one another. This is part of our group identity. Almost all of us can say we are part of or belong to something, to many things really, a church, a social club, a writing group, a band, a chorus, the Friday night regulars at the local watering hole or coffee shop. Belonging feels good. Belonging is safe. Conversely, we know loneliness kills, and solitary confinement is a particularly cruel form of torture. The Amish practice of shunning is the worst possible punishment a group can impose on a member of that group who breaks the rules. Total isolation and shame. You're an outcast. Part of the devastation of COVID was the isolation. Belonging, being connected, being a part of something, needing to be part of something, is a good and very human thing to do. We humans are pack animals. We are by nature community and tribally oriented. It's how we've survived over all of these years. But when does "these are my people and I am safe and happy here" turn into "these are my people and everything else that is not my people is bad"? To everything that is not my tribe or my pack is to be suspect, and then reviled, and then attacked, and eventually eliminated. As I said earlier, the word tribalism is getting a lot of attention these days, particularly in the political sense. Excuse me. More and more, it would appear that the importance of party unity and cohesion, with the ongoing goal of re-election, comes first, and anything else, like working for the good of the people, seems to be running a weak second, on both sides of the aisle. At the same time, we all know there's strength in numbers, and a burden shared is half as heavy as the one carried alone. And we all know there is strength in numbers, and a burden shared, I repeat myself, is half as heavy as one carried alone. Sorry about that. So, beloved religious community is good. Working towards a common goal is good. But is circling the wagons, putting up walls, and making enemies of outsiders with fear-driven self-protection, is that bad? No, it's not inherently bad. It's a community survival technique when humans feel threatened. It works. Question is, when and how and why does working together for the common good cross the line into my way or the highway? When do stereotyping and name-calling cross the line to death threats, assassination, and political coup? It would appear that the space between the two is getting smaller and smaller, and the space for any meaningful dialogue between the two armed camps is fast disappearing altogether. Now, true story, long ago and far away on the island of Martha's Vineyard, I preached a sermon on UU hypocrisy. Yes, you heard me correctly, UU hypocrisy. It was prompted by two events. One was that a couple of activist members had gotten up and lighted candles of concern only to go off on a political rant against everything and everyone, by name, they thought was wrong with the country, the church, the island, and in general, anything driven by conservative thinking. Fear and condemnation of the other, whatever the other is. That same week, a couple who were conservative politically and theologically, and no, conservative is not a four-letter word, came to me in private to tell me they were beginning to feel uncomfortable and even unwelcome in the church they'd attended and supported all of their lives. They confessed to me in whispers. They still liked to hear the Lord's Prayer and the odd Bible verse, and despite 7 principles, they still believed in practicing the golden rule. When did it become a UU sin to be either Christian or Christian-leaning in your personal theology, and or a practicing political conservative? I asked myself. The couple complained that many within the congregation were making broad assumptions about the mindset of everyone in the congregation, that consciously or unconsciously these people were making an outcast of anyone who dared voice anything other than what the majority of them considered to be their personal gospel. After any number of meetings, and you know what church decision-making is like, we came to the understanding, and eventually the policy, that a church worship service was not a political or theological ranting station. My opening words the following Sunday were in fact a warning. Good morning, my friends, I said. It's only fair to warn you that some of you will not like what I'm about to say, and you still have time to leave. Of course, no one left. Who would miss a chance to hear something controversial, offensive, maybe even juicy? Everyone stayed put, and I began to talk about UU hypocrisy. UUs make a business of being inclusive, I said. It's in our principles. This is supposed to be a place where everyone is welcome, and where everyone is supported in their own personal theology, lifestyle, and quest for truth. That's what we signed up for, and that's what we came for. Lots of head affirming, not. So I asked my Martha's Vineyard folks, my good Martha's Vineyard folks, if they would have any trouble welcoming my openly gay friend Andy. Remember, this was 20 years ago, and not as many people were safely out back in those dark ages, and rainbow flags flying outside of churches were few and far between. Would they accept and welcome him, I asked. Of course they would, with open arms. Come to us, be one of us. you are, lots more, affirming and not. And then I said, would you welcome him so gladly, knowing he is the president of the South Shore chapter of the arch-conservative Log Cabin Republicans? The room went dead silent. I went on to say, if you can't welcome gay and arch-conservative in the same person, is that conditional acceptance? Is that setting standards? Gay, okay, gay and conservative, not so much. I had just crossed a very dangerous line. I'd gone behind the comfortable facade of liberal knee-jerk thinking and called them to personal account. Was their liberal thinking maybe not so inclusive after all? And maybe, just maybe, a little self-examination was in order. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trashing the Martha's Vineyard population, far from it. But on that particular Sunday morning, I did call them to account. At the end of the service, no, I was not fired on the spot. I went back to the back of the church to greet the Sunday crowd and waited for the axe to fall. One of the very men who earlier had expressed his discomfort came up to shake my hand. And then, still holding on to my hand, he said in a loud, clear voice, "Reverend Judy, you were right. I really didn't like that sermon." And then he added, "But I really needed to hear it. So thank you for being brave enough to give it." It's a conundrum, really. Tribalism, or rather wanting to belong to something, be part of something, wanting to feel safe and included in the group, the community, the circle, is wonderfully, humanly human. We can get so much more done if we work as a team than if we try to do it all on our own. It's when the comfortable circle of fellowship and belonging becomes intractable, rigid and controlling of thought, word, and deed, that the inclusion becomes ownership, and anything that is not part of the circle becomes suspect, and in some instances, eventually becomes the enemy. And what do you do to enemies? You revile them, you attack them, you badmouth them, you ridicule, you dismiss them, blame, attack, all the way, as I said earlier, to abolish and eliminate. But, says the article that Jenn read earlier, one is not the automatic result of the other, or it doesn't have to be. Belonging does not require exclusivity, but it does require self-examination. Christian doctrine does not require anti-Semitism. Being an atheist does not require the atheist to hate and attack the faithful, and vice versa. Some of my best friends are atheists, she said. Inclusivity is a many-splendored thing, and it takes work. Stretching the edges of your comfort zone is backbreaking. Anything worth having, worth believing in, worth promoting takes work, takes self-examination and self-awareness, and it takes knowledge and understanding of the other. Knowledge and understanding, walking in their moccasins. That's the big one. We can't assume that everyone here in this church thinks exactly like you do. You individually do. Really, we shouldn't assume anything. We need to lead with an open hand, not a fist, and not close down the minute we hear something new and different. I repeat, we need to lead with an open hand and an open mind. The one we all say we commit to having. Asking real questions of someone who thinks differently than you. Real questions leading to greater understanding. But it's not just asking the questions. It's about listening to and hearing the answers. It's hard work, but it is what we signed on for. Blessed be. Closing hymn is hymn number 160, far too long. It's, I think, relatively unfamiliar. Sandi, would you sing the first verse?
Sure.
And then we'll all sing with Sandi the first two verses. Stand as you are comfortably able, please, in body or in spirit.
Far too
and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to one another. Amen.